Cool. Let's get started. Hey, cool. Welcome to the SciShow panel, Building a Passion Business. Before we get started, just a few moments for housekeeping. The panel discussion will be about 45 minutes, and we'll have 15 minutes for Q&A. At any time, feel free to type in your comments or questions in the chat, and we will answer as we go or towards the end. Please mute yourself when you're not talking. And thanks again for joining the session. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our panelists. So today we have invited three amazing humans to discuss their journey of starting a business. They're all from the creative field and founded their own business. And what's really interesting to me is that we have a very diverse mix of business types here. We have a digital product, a physical shop, and a marketing agency. So our three panelists are Sunil, co-founder and COO of Marrk app, a platform to share your place stories with friends and followers. And we have Mackenzie, founder and owner of the Philo, a physical shop and website that sells tropical plants. And we have Pam, who is a managing partner and creative director of Realistic Agency, a creative advisory providing digital and physical solutions for business and brands. Without further ado, I would like to invite our panelists to introduce themselves. Sunil, would you like to go first?
Oh, wow. Okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Yanci. That was a good intro. My name is Sunil, and as Yanci said, I'm the co-founder of an app called Marrk. I'm sure we'll go into more about Marrk later, but I'll tell you a bit more about myself. So I'm currently in Los Angeles, and Marrk is my first startup, and I've been doing this for the last 2 years. And I picked the best time to be doing a startup, particularly one about going out for sure. This is my second career, really. And I spent the first career of my life, about 17 years in advertising and digital agencies. And predominantly, most of that was in AKQA, where I worked with Yanci for a bit in London and Berlin and Portland and stuff. And outside of work, I mean, to be honest with you, there hasn't been much outside of work lately with my startup. But in general, I enjoy cooking, tennis, dabble in photography, going out, discovering places, etc. Thanks.
Awesome. Mackenzie?
Have to unmute myself there. Hi, I'm Mackenzie. I am the owner of the Philo here in Portland, Oregon. And like Sunil, this is sort of my second, third, maybe fourth go around at a career. I really I'm a kind of a Jack or Jill of all trades. I've tried everything. I've done lots of different things. And I was working in tourism and hospitality when COVID hit, and obviously that was my income kind of got pulled right out from under me, and I had to get creative. And I was working with plants just for fun, and it kind of naturally evolved into this other business. But because I really like the outdoors, and it was something that just sort of was a natural progression for me. So that's what got me into the Philo. But I really do like nature and animals and exploring and traveling and stuff like that. So this was sort of a natural next step for me because I couldn't do that over the last couple of years. So
awesome.
I love your background, by the way. Beautiful.
Thank you.
And it's real.
That's my jungle over there.
yeah, love it.
I've been to your shop. It's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Love it.
All right, Pam, you're next.
Hi, I'm Pam. I am co-owner, managing partner of Realistic, and my journey, I was started off as a graphic designer. Graduated college in 2008, which was like kind of the beginning of the recession, and I was just like, I just want to get a design job. And I ended up being like receptionist for a year and then trying to find ways to do design on the side. So I guess I started my freelancing career because I'm like, I'm not able to get a design job, so I might as well not like have a year off basically. So when I got let go at that job, which was a blessing in disguise, I ended up, that kind of launched my like freelance and contract around Portland career. So I like contracted at Nike, I contracted at different agencies and smaller studios, and ended up like, meeting a lot of people, and really, it was a great way. I always say it's kind of like I dated Portland with my career. So I was figured out like, no, I wouldn't want to do that. No, I wouldn't want to do that. And there was a lot of like, oh, why won't they hire me? I mean, I even like interviewed at Wieden & Kennedy, and like, it was like one of those things where I'm like, I have all these skills. Why am I not able to do this? So what ended up happening is I started actually taking seriously, not just being like a sole proprietor freelancer. I was like, I'm gonna like, maybe I just be my own boss. Like maybe this is where my path is. And I always kind of knew that was what I wanted to do. I just didn't think it was going to come that soon. Like, I'm like, that's something I'll do in my 40s. And it ended up coming at like, 30. So I ended up like, I started taking that a little bit more seriously, and ended up getting called. There's like lots of creative staffing companies in Portland. And that's how I got a lot of my freelance work as just a freelancer. But when I kind of still took some of those while I was developing, a business plan and, getting my paperwork together to become an LLC, which actually was funny. What happened is I ended up meeting my now business partner because he was looking for a designer and he was located in Denver. And they were like, hey, we're just like the staffing company was like, hey, we're actually looking, can we give your name to our Denver office? We really would love to be able to like, they're having a hard time filling some spots. They're like, and so I ended up meeting him because he had been running a studio for about 8 years. And we ended up meeting because he just needed a designer. And so I did some projects for him. And then he's like, would you be interested at all in like partnering with me? And so what ended up happening is I put in sweat equity, which if you don't know, like, a lot of times you buy into a company, but I ended up like working for free, like, putting in that amount of work for probably like 2 to 3 months. And we rebranded, renamed. I kind of got to not have to do all like this. There was already an established business. All I had to do was merge the clients I had made to an already established business. So it almost felt like it's always kind of felt almost like I helped, but I also got like a working internship of how to run a business. So yeah, it was really cool how it happened because it's what I wanted. And we're in year 4 right now. And so that's been really exciting. It's been a lot of ups and downs, but outside of that, I actually feel like I have a work-life balance again. And so what I like to do for fun is I love music. I love going to concerts. I love, hanging out with friends and cooking, dancing, playing soccer, snowboarding, all the outdoor stuff. Yeah.
Thank you, Pam, for taking us through your journey. Sunil, I'm interested in hearing more about how everything started at the first place, because we were working together at AKQA, and all of a sudden you announced that you want to join the startup world. I would love to hear more about that. You're muted, sorry. Sunil, you're muted.
Okay, I was going to say, I'm going to rewind a bit. I'm going to rewind again because I was muted. So I mean, as I said, I was working in advertising for the last 18 years or so. And in that entire time, and we were working in a company like AKQA, and even prior to that, I always had like an entrepreneurial streak in me. And even within work, I always kind of wanted to seek out opportunities that would give me the maximum freedom while being allowed to express myself and build business that way. So I always had this streak, and there was a bunch of startups that I had tried to do in my kind of over that period of time. There was we tried to do something with indoor mapping. We tried to do something with taxi ordering, and this was in London. And then I was working with an edtech startup as an advisor for some time and helping them kind of build out MVPs for an education company in India. So I was kind of always dabbling in it, but never able to actually commit to it and get out and do a startup of my own. So that was me going there. And then my co-founders who started Marrk were actually in India, and they had started, this was their second startup. The first one was a huge exit that they had, and they had bigger ambitions and they wanted to come and launch in the US. And I was connected to one of them, and he came out to Portland to visit me, and then we got talking, and he wanted some advice and help on how he should go about launching his app in the US. And then at first I was doing it as a side hustle. I was traveling to LA back and forth and helping him kind of get it off the ground by doing some user testing and early pilot testing as you want to validate your concept and things like that. So we did that. And then as I kept getting more involved and it became more my idea as it morphed and as based on the user testing, and I was just like, hey, you know what? And this is something I had been thinking about anyway, because I traveled a lot. And then I kind of got in touch and I was like, look, it's been about 6 months of me doing this as a side hustle. I'd like to just jump in and get on full board. And we hit it off as a team. And that's what led to that announcement, which you got in the email going, hey, I'm quitting and I'm going to do a startup, which is very unusual for someone after a long career, especially at the age of 42, So yeah, so here I am.
Yay, bravo. It's very brave.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
All right, Mackenzie. I went to your website the other day and I read about your story. So I know a little bit about it. It's very personal, very touching. I would love to hear what was going through your mind, during COVID and like mentally. Oh, am I signed out? Huh.
You're here.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm an entrepreneur by blood. My mom has always been her own boss, and I kind of took a note from her and realized early on that I really wanted to be in control of my career path. And so since I was 18, I have been in business on my own. I had multiple cleaning companies where I did house cleaning, and then I got into a design and Airbnb management type business, and learned a lot from my previous employer and didn't like how she was doing everything. So I took a little bit of that, and I took my other co-manager and we started our own business. And this was about 4 years pre-COVID. So we got into the design also, which was super fun. But the tourism aspect obviously got hit really hard when COVID started. So in March of 2020, when everything was shut down, I had no income coming in at all, nothing. And because of getting into the design a few years before, I had all these houseplants, because a lot of people like to design with houseplants, and I started with fake plants. So we'll just, I didn't know what I was doing at first, but it turns out I had a green thumb. And so a few plants turned into hundreds, and I really was having a good time growing, and my creative juices were flowing. I was making lots of art from photography that I had done with the plants, and they were just super inspiring. And I noticed that because people were stuck inside, they were also interested in growing their houseplant collections. And it was just sort of something that seemed like there would be a bit of lucrative, there's something there. So I just kind of jumped into it, and I don't regret it at all because it's been working really well for me. So thank you, COVID, for happening. There's some positives, especially for us creative professionals, because it really takes you out of your comfort zone and says, hey, okay, you have to do this to survive. And my partner was also unemployed. So we were struggling. It was a hard couple years, and I'm thankful for the Philo Den for helping me get through the last couple years. And yeah.
Yay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mackenzie. I also know some people that, their business, their jobs got hit by COVID, and they were desperate at first, but then pivot into something, and now they're actually in a better position. Yeah, I'd love to hear like if COVID has affected any aspect of your business and Pan and Sunil.
Oh, do you want to go first? Pam,
Yeah, I'll go. Yeah, we were coming off of in 2019, we were like, it was kind of like, so I started in 2018 with my business partner, and in our 2019, we were like, we had a great year. Like everything was really good. We had, got our business on, like we were vendor for Nike, which was a big deal to get on for. And like, we were just kind of like, giving ourselves raises, being like, had an intern, had an office, like all that stuff. And so like coming off of 2019 and then hitting 20, and we always are a little bit slower at the beginning of 20, or like the beginning of the year. And so then we were like, oh my God, like we lost, like a client was like, hey, we can't, we had a retainer client that's like, we can't have you anymore. And so it made us really get scrappy. But I think, Mackenzie, what I like what you said is I think the reason why creatives can do really well in an environment where they're put there is we don't thrive off of the creative part comes out of wanting to problem solve in a unique way. And I always say my business partner I've been actually trying to find, because we're not a marketing agency or a design agency. We're kind of a mix of a consultancy, design agency, all that stuff. So we've been actually trying to figure out a name for that, because the biggest thing is we're creative problem solvers. So for us in the pandemic, it was a really good way to figure out, well, what do? We like looked into like, who are we? What do we want to be? It made us kind of really zone in on like, we want to rebrand. The branding we have now, which is not up yet. If you go to our website, it's old, but we're like, we really kind of figured out who we are, who the client, it just made us really go in. And of course we benefited from like having the PPA loan and all that stuff, but we basically had low overhead because there's just the two of us. So we, got rid of offices, didn't have an intern anymore. We were able to get pretty scrappy, but it really made us look into, well, what do we want to do? What do we do well? And how can we capitalize on that? And I'm sure you guys probably felt the same, that's like what you have to do.
Oh, 100%, 100%. I think what you said is absolutely right. I think as an entrepreneur, it's all about problem solving. And it's continuous. The problems you think you know, and problems that's gonna happen, and of course things like the pandemic, which is like, fuck, what do we do, right? So our story is, you can imagine we started life as a real-time reviews app. So the idea was we wanted to take on someone like Yelp and bring something better to the market. And so you go and you review places using photos and videos, and it all goes up there in real time, not kind of algorithm based. So people could see before stepping out what a place was like. And that was how Marrk got into the market. That's how we entered the market. And in October 2019 in LA. And we'd grown the community to about 2,000 people by February, when, of course, COVID hit and the world stopped going out. So it was like, what do we do? But luckily for us, we had noticed that on the app, people were posting from supermarkets. A couple of people had done it and said, oh, there's no hand sanitizer available. So we actually jumped on the idea. We had an idea, and in 36 hours, we pivoted and became about emergency supply finding. So we created a tool that was all about, you could go to supermarkets, you could go to pharmacies, and you could say, this place has got bread in stock, this place has got milk in stock, this place has got all this, it's very unsexy, but very useful. And that's what people wanted at that time, right? And so we got that out in the market, and and then we put it out, sent it to some journalists. Again, this is us with not much of a network, with no PR agency. Obviously, we've got no money for all of that stuff. And so we just literally shot it to a bunch of journalists, and one of them picked it up. And 6 a.m. one day, he calls me, and literally 6 a.m, I got a message, and I wake up at 6:30 and I call him back. He's like, can you come to the studio today? I want to talk to you about this. I was like, all right, okay. Then like literally marches me in straight to camera, and he goes, right, so tell me about this. So I was like, yeah, so, this is what Marrk is. And if you need toilet paper anywhere in LA or anywhere in the world, you can start using it to share. And that got us, actually, to be honest with you, that got us the biggest wave of growth that we've had in our young startup life, because we were again useful and relevant. But then, of course, right through the pandemic, it was a bit of a struggle. Is it going to end? Are people going to come back to start going out again? Are we going to be about going out again, or are we going to still continue to be about finding supplies? So we were kind of in that phase for a while. And yeah, through the second half of the pandemic, we were all about going out? What places are open? Are they, they're doing indoor dining? Do they have outdoor, outdoor seating, or et cetera, et cetera? So we kind of found a way to be relevant, but it all comes back down to, how quickly can you solve a problem? And especially for us, we're at an advantage because we are a tech company, and you can move pretty quick to react to the market and what it needs. And we were able to do that. And full credit to the team that we were able to do something to stay relevant during COVID, to be honest with you.
Amazing. Like, it's just so interesting to hear how you're envision something to be this way, a certain way, and then the world changed and you pivoted and pivoted again. Yeah. Being adaptive is super important to running a business.
It's survival, right? I mean, it was survival for last year. I think everybody will share that. It was pretty much about survival and kind of figuring out a way to remain relevant.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that because I realized I didn't actually answer how we kept ourselves alive, is we benefited from helping businesses that wanted to pivot, that were changing. And hey, we're going to maybe offshoot to this other thing. We're going to rebrand and all that stuff. And I think pivoting was kind of the most exciting thing, actually, for all of us.
Yeah, 100%. I wish I knew you then. We should.
Yeah.
Yeah. So back to the tropical jungle. So Mackenzie, there are, I noticed that the trend of tropical plants is really the price and skyrocketed in COVID, and there are a lot of people selling them, on Facebook, on Etsy, and there are importers from overseas. How do you position yourself? How do you build this brand, and how do you stand out from your competitors?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's hard. It's a really hard thing to do. There is just an insane amount of competition for people doing exactly what I'm doing. But the stance that I take, and something that I think has helped me build my client base, and what's continued to help me have repeat customers, is the fact that my main goal is to kind of bridge the gap between inaccessible plants and people in the plant community. So what I mean by inaccessible is plants that are just really hard to acquire by whatever means possible, or that could just be because it's really scarce, or that the price is super high. So my goal, and the reason why you see so many plants behind me, is I get these plants, I grow them out here in my home, and then I propagate them and I try to sell them for a price that I feel is attainable for the majority of people who want to collect these plants. And I think that that's always been important to me, is that to try to not keep people in poverty. So I really think that plants help people's moods. They help keep people happy. They make the space beautiful that you're inhabiting, and they make oxygen. They're really great. And so having plants is super awesome for people. And so I really want to help make it easier for people to have them. And I also offer a lot of education, so that somebody who doesn't know what they're doing really, but maybe is a little intimidated, but really would like to have some of these plants, can feel a little bit more supported in that journey. And yeah, I think that just being open and willing to share has really helped me compete with people who are just sort of surface level, here's your plant, you're done. I'm an open book, and I want to make sure that people can reach out to me and feel supported with the plants that they have. So yeah.
Cool. Tell us about your business model. I know you have a private shop.
Yes.
Absolutely beautiful, and a website.
Yeah, my business model's really unique. So I started out just doing pop-up events here in Portland. And so I, would set up a tent and my table and bring my plants. And that was how I started. And I basically had like one event organizer who she dropped the ball. She didn't get me any info until like the day before. And it really irked me. I was really upset about it. And I just said, you know what, I'm not doing this event. But I had hundreds of people who had said that they were coming and wanted to buy plants from me. And so I decided to build a retail shop in my house. And like I mentioned, I was doing Airbnb management and design, and I had an Airbnb space in my house. And because no one was traveling for COVID, it was just sort of sitting empty. And I thought, you know what, let's just do it. Let's make this into a shop. And I'm actually not in my shop right now. This is my other side of my house, but but my shop is really cool. And I started out just because of COVID, I couldn't be open to the public. I couldn't let people just walk into my house, especially since it was my house. So I said, how do I make this work for everybody so everybody feels safe and can still come and shop for plants? And so that's where the appointment sort of came about. And so I started doing just limited appointments every month. And I mean, they're booked out. It's really exciting to see how interested people are in sharing this hobby and getting involved in it. So it's been really great. It's been a really cool experience, honestly.
I highly recommend everyone in this meeting to check out her website, thephiloden.com, right? Or just Google the Philoden. Yeah.
The Philoden, yep. The philodenpdx.com is it. I have the philoden.com too, but it's not up and running yet. So.
Do you ship to LA?
I ship anywhere in the US.
There you go.
Yes.
Awesome.
Here we go.
Yeah.
So
my room really needs some plants, as you can see.
Yeah.
You need so many plants.
So I'm interested in hearing, like, like when you start like a new company, like you want to build a brand, and how do you choose a name and the visual identity? I'm gonna ask you, Pam, later, because you are the expert there. I know you're an amazing visual designer, but I want to hear, Sunil, like, yeah, how do you come up with the brand and the color palette? And
yeah. So a couple of things, right? Generally, when it comes to branding and design, there's a clash of two worlds, especially in the tech startup world, right? I come from the world of picture perfect, polished design. It's got to look good. Otherwise, I'm not even interested in it. I'm not looking at it, kind of thing. Whereas the startup world, which is all about focus on utility, tech. Look at Amazon. It's a classic example. Look at Amazon.com. They look like shit. They look really bad, but look how well they're doing. And so it's kind of, so there's in general two schools of thought clashing. And as you can imagine, me, after 17 years of being ingrained in the agency world, I was like, God, it's so important. But some things I learned to give on. I learned to, so we had this interesting clash of two worlds coming in as a preface to what I'm about to say. But the actual process of coming to a name, I'm sorry to disappoint you, it was actually very, very unscientific. We literally bounced around a bunch of names across the team, and everybody, we made it democratic. We said, hey, everybody, but we had a Google spreadsheet. We said, hey, come up with the names, because we realized, look, we knew examples of things like, Spotify. Airbnb was a great example of a company that went through pretty serious rebranding quite later on in their life. And we knew that as a young startup, it is important, but it's not necessarily the end of the world. So we asked around, and then we picked Marrk, purely because for us, it was something that made sense. It's like, because it was all about real-time photo and video reviews about places. So you're leaving a mark, you're making a marketplaces. And so that for us resonated really well. And the two cases, just our little kind of hat tip to, we didn't obviously want to call it Marrk as a person, but secondly, we also wanted to have, it's a bit of a tech sounding name, right? So that's kind of why we settled on it. When it comes to design and look and feel of the brand, and there I kind of push, because ultimately we're building a consumer app, And whether you like it or not, the level of trying to get people to adopt something, it makes a difference. It's not the defining factor when whether people like something, but it's got to be aesthetically pleasing. And luckily for us, we have the M in the name, right? And we knew early on, we were actually, by the way, guys, we were actually one of the first ones to go into dark mode before anyone did on Instagram, Twitter, etc. So we were one of the first ones to do it. And we always knew we had a kind of preference for being in the dark mode and black. And then we knew, and the yellow kind of for us, black and yellow looked like a good color palette as we experimented with it. And literally that's why we chose it. And we said, look, it looks great, let's run with it. And I'm pleased with how I'm running. So this is the t-shirt that I'm wearing. As you can see, it says I Marrk LA, or it says I Marrk New York, etc. So we also realized that it has some legs and extensibility, which was important to us because you could use it in different ways, right? So once we knew that this color palette worked, once we knew that the logo worked, then we were able to, then we kind of roughly said, okay, can we try and use it in different sentences? And, it worked. And I remember this early on, me and my co-founder had a whole text exchange for about 5 minutes where every sentence had the word Marrk in it, where we were just saying, this, and it got quite funny and stupid in the end, but we managed to sustain a conversation for a while, and we were like, okay, great, this is it. So we went with Marrk as a name, and because it works as a verb, etc. And from a design point of view, we knew that we wanted to be in the dark mode, and the black and yellow always resonated with us. I don't have like a super strategic rationale as to why we pick these colors, etc. But it works. It works for us. And there'll be a time when, hopefully in our life, when we'll have to kind of take it seriously and redo it. But I would love to have that problem, which means we're big enough to have that problem. So, okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Sunil. All right, Pam. So love to hear your perspective on branding a new business, especially for folks that don't have a lot of budget to hire an agency.
Well, so we have a couple of different packages for businesses. My favorite, and so like branding to me, it all starts with the strategy first. If you can't do any look and feel unless you know the strategy, so that means asking good questions. And so what I've actually developed, which is one of our higher packaged branding packages, actually is a branding workshop where we're hired, we'll fly into you, and we hold about a 4-hour workshop, which includes figuring out the name. But it actually, we figure out like a bunch of questions, like really deep questions that are kind of like, they kind of go anywhere from like, where do you see your company in 5 years to like, what are some words that describe your company? Like, what are words that don't? Like, what do you want to feel when you come in? Like really going deep in, because it's really funny. What ends up happening is the clients will start all these side conversations, and you'll really kind of get to see what the company's about. And then we end up figuring out brand pillars, like their brand values. Because when we end up making a full brand guidelines, which is like their brand Bible that they're going to give to whatever designer they hire or agency they hire after, or in-house person, they want to make sure that they're also like hiring and making all these decisions based upon their brand guidelines. So it all starts with brand strategy first for us. And then for someone, I think that the biggest thing is with someone who's starting up, you need to actually seriously understand that you need to put money towards your branding. Like it can't be something that you can't expect a designer to be like, I'm going to make you a logo for $100. It's a slap in the face. I mean, my best advice for someone who's first starting, make sure your business is going to make money first, and then put the money into, because you can do like our lowest for us there's probably agencies that are probably like aren't going to go high, are probably going to be way higher, but our lowest like brand package is $3,000. And that doesn't get you that only gets you the bare minimum of like, you get it's basically, you just don't get as much, you'll get your thing. But what I think is like when you're a startup, see if your business is going to make money first, make like a little, kind of make up a logo. Like maybe maybe you can get some like college person or college student to do it. And then once you're like kind of because you need to put money and time and consideration into like, this is how you're being presented to the world. And those colors, the typography, all of like having the brand strategy and all that stuff to make sense, you're not going to have to do it twice until you get to that really awesome pivotal point. What Sunil was saying, it was like, when you have that problem, then you can like, go higher. But I would say that that's my biggest advice is first, make sure that your business is going to be profitable, and then make sure put 3 to 5K away to like do a proper branding. I'm sure there's like, we always say my cousin's nephew, it's like a kind of like you'll get, because whenever we get rebrand jobs, like it'll be like, oh yeah, my cousin's nephew did it for us for like $100. And we're like, yeah, you're not taking, I literally had a client one time say, well, the last designer that did our logo, we took them to ringside. And I'm just like, So yeah, it's kind of, it's hard because when you're a startup, you don't have those funds yet. So I think my biggest thing is put the money aside and put your money towards the things that are going to making the thing, and put money aside for a proper branding job. Or you can probably hire somebody who's just starting out, but it's because it's a really big consideration. It's how you're shown to the world. It's how your consumers see you and want to interact with you. So you need to do the proper user research and figure out what's going to attract you, because or what's going to attract people to you and the clients you want. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. Mackenzie, I know you are an artist too. And so I assume that you branded the Philo Den.
I did all of my own branding, which is a fun thing for me. And I had a really good idea of what I wanted the Philo Den to be. I am really inspired by mid-century houseplant decor. And so I wanted my logo to have a mid-century feel. So I hand wrote the type, and that is what the Philo Den, I hand wrote that. So if you look at my logo, it's my handwriting, and I make new art all of the time for my branding. I do like lots of leaves and things. It's fun and it's easy for me because I can use my products for my branding, and it can change and grow with me as my business does. But it is fun if you do have an artistic flair and you have a good idea of how you want your business to be represented, to try it on your own. I think save your money, like Pamela said. And obviously it's really not great to flip-flop and change your direction a lot. You want to stick with something so that you're memorable and that people will recognize you as you move forward through the business world. And so I would say, before you go out there and brand yourself, to really think about how you want that to come across. And so I took a few months and figured out, really what I wanted it to be before I put it out there. And I think it's a good idea for sure.
Sounds like a soul searching.
Yes.
Like before you want to offer some product and service to the world, ask yourself, like, what do you want? What do you want to offer? All right, let's talk about money. Don't want to get too in the weeds here, but would love to hear like your money strategy getting started. It's expensive. Like sometimes you need to rent a space and you need to spend money on branding and hiring. So what's the strategy like to when you founded Marrk, Sunil? I think you're muted.
When I got involved in Marrk, it was already seed funded, so I missed that fun, if you will, of getting early on. And like I said, my co-founders had a successful exit of a startup company before, so that makes it easier for you to fundraise, because people know how you can grow a company and how to grow their investments, and also it becomes easier to raise investment. But that doesn't mean we're out of the gate, right? We've had to deal with a 2-year pandemic, and our funds have dwindled, and we're constantly looking at ways to stay in touch with investors and raise money. So I think there's a different struggle that we live through almost every day, kind of survival of the business, etc. Especially for someone like us, who are building a long-term platform with more of a long-term revenue picture, not a short-term one. So we wanted to grow for some time before we were turning profitable. But anyway, so we had the seed funding part I wasn't involved in, but in very general terms, like from what I have seen, and I've been dealing with meeting a lot of startup founders here in LA and things. Early on, like the thing you've got to firstly look at is how much can you bootstrap, right? How quickly can you get to value, delivering something of value to someone with spending as little money as possible. And that's when you start to really get disciplined about a lot of things are, to be honest with you, a lot of things initially can be quite frivolous. It's like, for example, to kind of, if you want to get somebody to buy plants, then ultimately it's like, can I get 2 people to buy it from me? That is something unique. And even better, can I get the 2 of them to talk to 3 other people about it, right? If you do that, then you have something, and then you'll get a lot more confident on the back of that. Firstly, to put more of your own money into it. And for me, that's always a good sign. If you know that you're confident enough in it to put your own money into it, then the second thing you're going to do is like you're confident enough to sell it to get other people's money into it. So I think those are the steps I would follow, to be like, try and think of like, how can you do something that can give something of value to people without kind of necessarily having to spend money, and be disciplined about it, right? It may not look the best, it may not have all of those things, but you're trying to, what you're trying to achieve, and that's the very first step. And then be disciplined about it is how I'd approach it.
Thanks, Sunil. Anyone wants to add to that?
I can add. I feel like for at least like a service, like my business is like service based, but I've always been remote. My business partner is actually located in Colorado. So I think for us, like when we talk about money, we really had to start looking at like having serious conversations around pricing, because there's a comparison thing where you're like, okay, am I going to lose clients because they can go to this person and because they charge cheaper, or they're not going to consider us good enough? And there's like a weird place you get put in where you're like, what's the right way? I struggled for a long time of being one of those people that was like, oh my gosh, like, should I go down so I can get clients? And then I found, oh my gosh, that's the way you get crappy clients, because they want people who want to pay cheaply for things. Like they want like the best service and they don't want to pay a lot for it. So that was a really fun lesson now, where we've really eliminated clients like that with being able to up our prices. But where we started with that was always like, what is our bare minimum that we both need to make to like pay for our lives to stay alive? Like, what do we need? We have like we call it our financial matrix, like a Google spreadsheet that has all of our expenses, like not our personal ones, but like we both were like, hey, I need to, like, I can't make under this. Like we absolutely have to. So we kind of had this, like, here's our overhead, here's all of our expenses for like, Adobe memberships, other memberships that we have, those things. And then extra money for like, other stuff, like from when we both had offices at one point. But we basically had like, we keep a spreadsheet and put everything in there, but we always know our bare minimum that we need to make and what needs to be made. And then, when it got scary, like in the beginning of COVID, we do have a reserve credit line, which we don't like to tap into, and we never had to, but we had to. And it's good to have something like that too, because there's also situations where places, really large corporations like Nike doesn't pay you for 60 days. So it's good to have something like that in place, because like large companies will have like a net 45, a net 60, sometimes a net 90. So that's a big, I know that like a lot of people get really kind of worried around like debt and stuff, but businesses, it's good to have a credit line because you're like, well, I didn't get paid, but I know I'm getting the money. So that's my advice I have. I didn't know that at first, and I'm glad my business partner already had one lined up.
I would like to say that, yeah, I agree. Having a credit card at all is a lifesaver. I have a similar type of thing where because I have a physical shop, I have physical merchandise, and I had to buy that. I had to buy it, and it's taking up space, and it sits there until somebody else wants to come buy it. And so I have a lot of debt. There's debt associated with this business, and there always will be in any inventory type business, or even service businesses where you're doing the work before you get paid. And so I think it's important to have a good financial bearing what's going on, what's coming in, what's going out, and setting targets. I have like sales targets for every weekend. So I'm trying to make sure that I hit that. And I'm trying to sell those top dollar plants so I can meet it. And yeah, it's this game we're all playing.
Cool. We're at our 45 minutes mark. I wanted to pause and ask the audience if we have any questions. I love Zoom silence. Little meditation. Okay, I have more questions. I can keep asking. And if you think of something, feel free to type in your question in the chat. Okay, so what are some of the biggest challenges you have faced in this journey? They can be unresolved or resolved.
Wow, where do we start, right? I think we all touched on the beast of COVID that we had to deal with, which kind of, I guess, is one mega challenge that led to like a million other small challenges on a daily, monthly, weekly basis. I think dealing with that makes you stronger. See, for us, I mean, I can talk from our perspective. Things like the marketing challenge, right? At the early on, when you're building a consumer app and trying to get a community going for it, there is the like, how quickly can you recognize who is your target customer, who are the people who are loving your app versus who you thought was loving what you built it for, right? So for us in particular, that was, I'll give you an example. For us, initially we built it going, okay, you know what, ultimately it kind of falls into the social media and place reviews category. So we expected a younger audience who are the new social platform, so we kind of had this approach in downtown LA and the colleges down here, etc. We were trying that, but literally the signals we saw was all kind of women in their mid to late 30s who actually loved our app and who kind of couldn't stop using it and were using it almost every day. And for us, initially it was just like, okay, is this like, where do we, how quickly do we recognize this? And this was led to a lot of discussion internally, right? Do we, let's double down, right? Because I'm the one on the ground here, and like for me, it was always like, okay, let's get everybody together, let's meet everybody, and then let's go dive deeper in. But the product guys at the back were more thinking along, oh no, we can't use language like that because that doesn't appeal to kids, etc., etc. So I think there's the especially for a tech company, the beauty of it is you can recognize things quickly, but also you've got to be able to react quickly. For us, speed is everything, and how quickly can we react and move to things. And then there's this endless, as I said, the funding thing is a constant challenge. How long can we survive? Or where do we sort of investors do we get into? Then there's the product and everything there's a lot of challenges in terms of, especially for a small company like us, and when we can't afford design externally, we can't have too many external dependencies because speed is important and we can't really rely on freelancers. We have tried it and it's been a constant challenge for us to be we can't afford to have someone longer term, we also want longer term people who believe in our product and our mission, right? Otherwise we waste a lot of time trying to have these debates which are not helpful or healthy, right? So there is the constant challenge of keeping your resources aligned with the products that you want to build and the speed that you want to build it in. So I mean, I can keep going, but I'll stop.
So I'm gonna change my question to, what is the top challenge? I know.
I think the top challenge, the one that I still haven't really figured out, because we're such a referral-based business, like doing outreach has always been, it's weird. No one likes getting cold called or cold email called. And that was something we did a lot of in the beginning in COVID. And we were kind of like, there's so much competition in being like a creative company, like, because everybody does it in Portland. It's really hard to figure out like what you're, where, who, and a lot of times it's actually relationship based. Like people want to work with people they like. That's really hands down what it is, because everybody can be talented, but it's like, do I like working with you? And we have an interesting situation. Sunil, you kind of, how we've pivoted our business a little bit is we've found that so many people, like where your business is or like other kind of businesses in that place, they don't necessarily want to, like no one really wants to hire out to agencies anymore because they want to have it in-house. They want them to be involved. So one thing that we've actually started doing is we are coming in and teaching, like we have a business right now out of Atlanta that we're basically like, we're like their in-house agency. We're teaching them how to have one. We're building one. And then once we've done the branding, we've kind of set the brand standard for them, and we will help them hire a team, and then we'll leave. And because they don't know how, they've never had one, they've always just used freelancers. And this is actually the second company we've done this with. And we're realizing, yeah, people want in-house teams. They don't want to keep like wondering if they're going to get called back. So it was interesting. So that's a new, I'm sorry that I kind of went on a tangent there, but ours has always been sales and figuring out the best sales strategy. And that's always been, I think in my industry specifically, it's really, because it's also not cool to like, you know, you don't really put up ads for an agency, and that's not something, it's so referral based and project based. So that's always my top challenge, or our top challenge as a company.
And just to quickly pick up on your point there, Pam, I think, because my job in AKQA was to lead new business in Portland. And before that, kind of lead our engagements with a lot of clients. And to me, I saw the writing on the wall for the agency business. Back in 2012, when I used to run a relationship with a large European travel client, we actually set up something called a mobile center of excellence, where we hired a space with them and we worked with them to build up their mobile capabilities. So it started with our team, and eventually we helped them recruit and then left them with their own team. So I'm fully on board with your thing. And it's something I was championing quite a lot when I was in the agency, saying, look, agencies, especially when it comes to digital, clients want to do it themselves, right? Technology and etc. So I think you're on the right track there.
I hope so. Yanci, I think you're muted.
Sorry. So what have you learned throughout this journey, and what advice would you give to someone who is tinkering around the idea of starting a business but have no experience?
I'll give some perspective there. I really think that basic small business education is super important. Bookkeeping, accounting. If you're going to be starting a business for yourself, because I've done it many times, I would say that this is something to not ignore. Take the time, make sure that you're learning how to do those things properly, because at the end of the day, that's going to be your biggest roadblock in moving forward or progressing in your business if you don't understand that back end organization stuff. And so I'd really, really stress, like, take some time, reach out to the Small Business Association, look into like whatever adult education courses you can take. Really important for sure.
I also think having a mentor is a big one. I have always thrived off, even before I had a business, I actually found that I gravitated towards, I was always a big person of having a mentor, but having a mentor I like to call it my business partner, I call it our like board, he calls it his board of elders. I call it my board of executives, or executive board. And it's like the people I admire that are at where I want to be in 5 to 10 years. And always having a meeting with them. Something I found out about during pandemic was called Lunch Club. And it was actually how I networked during the pandemic. And I got like, you just randomly get like matched up to talk to a stranger that's in your industry. You can kind of decide who you want to talk to. But I ended up talking to a woman who was exactly that. And her and I have a monthly every month. So that's something that I think is really important, because completely what you were saying, Mackenzie. That's all. I just like plus wanting that. That's all important. But having a mentor is a big one.
I agree because I have randomly met so many people who have helped me on this journey at the dog park, at the grocery store. I'm not even kidding. I'll strike up a random conversation with somebody and they turned out to be the person who can help me. And it's so strange, but if you're open to it, it happens. So yeah, I definitely think like just taking what you can from the people you meet and finding somebody to aspire to, especially someone who has experience or is where you want to be in life, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so definitely second all of that. And I think that last thing that you mentioned about, people, the universe provides, right? I think when you're out there, especially at the moments when you need it, it's weird. It's like you are, and there is a lot, and this comes from being vulnerable. I think that's the other thing and it gets harder as you get older, no question. And for me, I had what I consider a reasonably successful career, before. So, and used to you go into a room and you're talking to big clients like Nike and this, and you pretend like you know everything and you're there and people respect you for it and all that. And then suddenly you're outside doing a startup when you're a nobody completely, right? And you've got to start again. You've got to pick it up again. It teaches you a lot. I mean, it's a super humbling experience. And I kind of say this, I jokingly say this. It's like before, I think I used to know, I thought I knew everything, but after starting a startup, I realized I know nothing. And now I'm like, I think I know nothing, but I probably do know a bit more than nothing, So it's kind of like, it's a weird thing, but humility is massively important. I think be prepared to put yourself out there, be vulnerable, and seek help, because I think that's people are willing to help, right? And you'll be surprised. And this is likewise, it's just put yourself in their shoes. And if somebody asks you for help, you always want to help. You want to be, because it makes you feel good. And I think being open to asking for help is important.
And failing too.
Failing, yeah. Yes.
I think we can all agree that like we've probably all failed at some point. That's like the biggest, that's my favorite conversation with other entrepreneurs. It's like, what did you fail at? Because that's the thing that got us to where we were, right?
I know. I think there's a question on the chat.
Okay. Yeah, so Brandon is asking, what would you say has made your business successful or is setting you apart from competition? Who wants to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be very quick on this. It's just that for me, I think we're far from being successful yet. We've got a long way to go. But what the things that we think in the early stages for our product, I think what people are liking is, there's a backlash against social media in general, right? And what it's become today, and it's increasingly so. And the more you hear about it, there is more of that. So with Marrk, a lot of people see a platform which is more, takes the stress out of it, and it's easy and friendly to share. And you find a lot of people who want to share purely, they're into architecture and they want to go and document different interesting pieces of architecture they find for themselves and for others. It's not necessarily a platform about, I'm going to get 1,000 likes here or 10,000 likes there, or comments here, etc., etc. So it's something that people like. So we're quite trying to stick to that and build on it. And there is that. And then the other thing that we are building is, these large social platforms are ultimately, you're creating content on them for free, and they're massive billion-dollar corporations and doing a lot more damage as we're seeing. But what we are trying to do is build something that rewards people, and ultimately our goal is to create a new business model that brings creators, businesses, and viewers together. And we're excited about crypto and all of those things that are technology. So we want to double down on that, and so we want to create a platform that gives something back to people, and our users have liked that, as opposed to creating content for free.
Cool. We're at time, but I have one more question that is my favorite one that I have to ask. So you are all small business owners. You could be working for a big corporation and collecting paychecks, but you chose to start something of your own. And assume, it's harder than just, collecting paychecks. So what motivates you to do it? Is it like you like being your own boss, or is it to have a better work-life balance, or is the money better? Does it give you a sense of purpose? What keeps you going every day?
I think that I like the freedom. Like I like being able to make my own schedule. I like choosing who I work with. We've all worked with our fair share of difficult humans, and it's really fun to go into work knowing you love what you're doing. Because I don't know about you guys, but I like love that I can have like funny conversations with my business partner about stuff, and then like, you know, put heads down to this thing and sort of have creative freedom. I like all of that stuff. I have done so much better in that environment and not feel like you don't have to really feel like you're having to people please so much. And, you know, of course I could be, you know, making probably triple what I make now or double what I make now, whatever. But I'm just like, I'm going to get there. It's just, I think that I need the personal freedom and the being able to choose my clients. That's a big one too. Like you get to choose to not deal with someone who's toxic or a jerk or something, or not, isn't it aligned with your purpose of how you want your company to go? Because I think if all of us kind of pick, like when we're aligned and with the clients we want, we produce better work and we're happy about it and we're excited about showing up, and yeah, therefore just all around good.
I agree. And I think similarly to that vein, I started wanting to be in business for myself because I needed the control. I really did not like working to make somebody else rich. And I think the idea of self-sufficiency and having the control over how people view you, what your business looks like in all facets, is something that's really exciting, and what really motivated me to leave the regular 9-to-5 world and work for myself. With the flexibility was a huge thing too. But I think really just having something that I could be really proud of at the end of the day, that was mine, is the most important factor for me personally.
Yeah, and very quickly, it's similar for me. You know, for me, I wanted the personal challenge of building something. I was getting to a point in my career where it was a fairly cushy job, and I was kind of, as I said, I was reasonably good at it, and you know, everything was going smoothly, and I wanted to rock the boat, really, of my own life, and you know, get out there and kind of build something new and take on that challenge of creating a product. And there's this other thing in the back of my mind, which was, you know, we as agency folks and all that, we spent a lot of time telling people how they should build their business and what they should do and stuff, having never actually done it ourselves. So that for me, with the back of my mind, is always used to bug me. So I wanted to go out and see what it's like to actually build a business before I can advise people on what it takes to, you know, build a business. So there was that. And then obviously at my age, you know, money is important, right? You know, we do think there is a lot of potential, and a bit like what Pam said, it's like, you know, what Mackenzie said, it's like, I want to get, you know, we want to create value and take a lot more of that value for ourselves. Fundamentally, right? It's like, it's not getting someone else rich, but ultimately creating something of value and something big that hopefully makes a difference in the world and makes you a lot of money.
Cool. Well, thank you so much to our panelists. It's such a great discussion. I hope you all learned something today, and feel free to, you know, connect with us on LinkedIn and social media. And we have more sessions coming up for the SciShow this week, and visit scishow.org to sign up. Cool. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You guys, bye. Good to meet you guys. Bye.
Good to meet you.
Bye, Mackenzie, Sunil.